Well, hello everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back. I've got an interesting video for you. Today I want to talk about Alone. I want to talk about Season 5, Episode 6 of Mice and Men. So if you haven't seen this episode of Alone, I highly recommend that you turn this video off. It will contain spoilers. So let's go ahead and get started. I have some notes as usual, and let's start with the quote. It says, "We do not own these woods, they own us." This was a quote by Timothy Goodwin. So let's start the show. Day 24. We have 6 people left. We're going to start at 8:27 in the morning with Larry. He's talking about a mouse. So he decides to remove all the debris underneath his bed to check for the mouse, and he finds nothing. So now we're talking about Britt. He's really close to the camera, like this. Just entertaining himself more than anything. I thought it was a really funny shot. He decides to go fishing, and in the scene where he was fishing, in the background, I noticed there was some beautiful fall colors. He caught five fish. Okay, I thought that was crazy. Britt has got the best luck on this whole season for fishing, in my opinion. He has been killing it. Fish after fish after fish. He's definitely got to be like upriver of everybody or something. Just catching fish like crazy. The name of the fish that he caught was called a Lenok. I hope I'm saying that right. L-E-N-O-K. And so when he was opening the fish up, gutting the fish, he found in the fish's stomach a mouse. I've never seen anything like that, but apparently that species of fish is fairly common for them to eat rodents. I didn't know that. And then it shows a glimpse of his shelter again, and he's got a really nice shelter. Britt has put together a very solid shelter, and so he takes all these fish and he lays them up above his fire and in a process called cold smoking, which is very smart. He's jerking the meat, just like I always talk about. So he's got the fish, you know, they're quite a distance above the flames, so they're not cooking, they're smoking. Let's move forward. 2:43 in the afternoon. Again, we're still on day 24. We're talking about Randy, and he has 8 fish halves. He decides to smoke them on the chimney of his fireplace, which is so smart. Very similar to what Britt's doing, except Randy has found a piece of metal. Looks like a piece of sheet metal, and he lays the fish down over like a wood grid or grate that he made. He lays the fish on there. And if you haven't seen the show, his chimney that he made is made out of rock and like mud. It's very nice. So he lays this wood grid out. He puts the fish on, and then he lays this piece of sheet metal on top of the fish to hold them down, and also to keep the smoke, make it hard for the smoke to get out so it has more time penetrating the fish. Very, very smart. And I think Randy, of all the participants on this season of Alone, has the best shelter. If he was to meet Matt Graham and go to, Bushcraft Build-Off, I think he'd win best shelter. At least he's got my vote. So he's looking around and he sees a grouse, and he takes a shot with his bow, but he misses it. And then he sees it again, and I think he takes another shot. I can't remember exactly because I got distracted. In the background of that scene, there was some big pine trees, and I noticed the long pine needles, and it reminisces a ponderosa pine. I don't know if it was or not, but it looks like a ponderosa pine tree. The reason that's important to me is because those long needles on a pine tree can be steeped down into tea, and it's very high in vitamin A, vitamin C. It's very good for you if you have a cold or something like that. So I just kind of got sidetracked there. his smoker is working well, and he mentions that in the last 10 years of his life that he's been preparing for something like this. You know, his lifestyle as a whole. It's pretty crazy. Let's move forward. We're on day 25. We're talking about Brooke, and it's raining a lot. And she talks about how when she was in Vancouver Island, how she had a white tarp, and how that white tarp helped boost her mental, sharpness, or I guess you could say it took away depression and made her happy or whatever. Because here in Mongolia, she has a green tarp, and it causes her mental to kind of get low. She feels, it's a dark, glooming kind of color, and the color of the tarp with the sun rays through it, it just kind of sets almost a depressive tone where she's almost depressed a little bit based on the colors. I mean, let's not forget they're on day 25 and she's already been through quite a ringer out there. Everybody has. And the last thing, is this dark kind of shelter. And so it's kind of weighing on her a little bit. It rained all day long. Let's move forward. About 4 o'clock, we're talking about Britt. So he thinks about setting some traps. And he's not getting enough fat from the fish. And I don't know if that fat, if he's making fish head soup or not, if he's boiling up everything. So I don't know. But he decides to make a lever snare. I've never seen one of those before, but it looks very, very interesting. And there's an annotation on the screen that says it gets its name from lever stick. And he even admits that this is his first time making one. The lever stick is the one that lifts the animal as it gets caught, but it's very neat. It looks like a post, and then it's got this other post, and the snare is like here, and as the snare goes, it kind of like lifts the animal. Very cool looking design. So I'm going to have to do some research on that. I think it's pretty cool. And about 8 o'clock later that night, he hears something. And from what I could hear on my end, just listening to the show, it sounded like an elk. And then let's move forward, day 26. Britt decides to go out and check his trap. And he sees a huge moose track in the ground. And there's an annotation that says that the Manchurian moose in Mongolia can reach up to 9 feet tall. They're huge animals. And he noticed that on his snare that he had set, that the anchor stick had came out of the ground. Let's move forward. About 11 o'clock in the morning, day 26, we're talking about Dave. And he has a Mora knife. For those of you who own Mora knives, they're very sharp knives. I swear by the Moras. I think they're one of the best knives. They're razor sharp from the factory. Now he decides to sharpen his Mora knife on a rock. And then he hears something running. And he takes a shot. And it's, I think it was called a commert. It's some kind of large bird. Up to 9 pounds. And he feels bad because the footage shows his arrow like hitting this bird. And the bird's kind of having a hard time getting away, but still does get away. So his shot hit, but he didn't get a kill. And he's really feeling bad. This is weighing heavily on him. Let's move forward to day 27. About 8:20 in the morning, we're talking about Brooke. She's happy. She goes out to get some sunshine. She's going to get out of the shelter today. She's going to hike just under 3 miles. She's going to go to the top of a ridge. It's very pretty up there, and she's halfway to the top. And she's looking around and she sees this terrible weather rolling in. She's starting to get a little concerned about that. And she doesn't know if she wants to continue on this hike and get caught in the weather or to turn back. And, she admits that she's kind of making a bad choice as far as burning calories. It takes a lot of energy to hike. And she says, there's probably people watching the show that are thinking that she's crazy for doing this. And I don't think she is, because I agree with her point. She says, only once in your lifetime Am I going to be able to come here to Mongolia? So to me, this is worth it. I agree with her 100%. So she's going on this journey. You know, she's going to hike this hill or whatever and get up to the top. And during the process, she finds some rose hips and some chaga. Really cool stuff. So let's move forward. We're still talking about Brooke. The weather rolls in. She's starting to get sprinkled on, and she's going down. And she says it's so beautiful here. And then she hears lightning. And then there's an annotation on the screen that says lightning kills 2,000 people a year. That's pretty scary. So she goes back into her shelter, and then she starts talking. As soon as she gets into her shelter, she starts talking about how easy it would be to quit. You know, I could just go home. And it's like that whole demoralizing feeling. The second she gets in her shelter, it just kicks in again. So she's really struggling with that green tarp and the colors and stuff, you know. And let's move forward. We're talking about Larry. The mouse is really upsetting him. It's really pissing him off. You know, he's already frustrated. He's already hungry. Let's move forward. We're talking about Dave. It's about 11 something at night. And he's talking about how he's been on these emotional highs and these emotional lows. And he said that there's mice also coming into his shelter. And then he tells the mouse, he says, if you don't want to die, I would suggest that you leave. And then the deadfall, he had a deadfall, and it goes off and he gets a mouse. Now day 28 at 7 in the morning, we're still talking about Dave, and he's gotten 3 mice during the night from this deadfall that he had in his shelter. I thought that was crazy. He says, I'm going to eat them. And he's working on his mental toughness right now, which is good. You know, he's got some food coming in. It's not much. It's a mouse, but still, that's protein. Let's move forward. 11:42, we're talking about Larry. He said that he's been dealing with mice this entire time that he's been out there. And he also, for those of you who have watched him on season 2 in Vancouver Island, he was dealing with mice there too. In fact, the tattoo on his back, I think, has a mouse on it. So he uses the bear spray. I mean, he just goes crazy with the bear spray, spraying all over underneath his bedding and everything. And then he gets the air horn, and he's just blowing the air horn, just trying to torment the hell out of these mice. I thought that was funny. You know, he's kind of losing it a little bit. But that's typical Larry. Let's move forward. Let's talk about Brooke again. She says that she can't handle this green tarp. And then back to Larry. The whole time he's doing this mouse thing with this bear spray and stuff, he's talking about the mental trauma that he suffered from Vancouver Island is visiting him here in Mongolia. Let's move forward to Dave. We're still on day 28. Dave the killing is bothering him, and he says that he feels raw. It's really starting to take a big toll on him. He does not like killing. I mean, but he understands the fine balance of being in a survival show where he needs to do that, but he's really hoping for a big kill instead of a bunch of small kills. So there's a smaller amount of life being taken, I guess. So then we're looking at about 2 something in the afternoon, and then we see a yellow vehicle, the rescue vehicle, coming across the screen. So we know something's up. Is it a med check? Is it a, what's going on? Well, the scene opens up, and it's Brooke, and she taps. And she taps, and this is funny because I've been on social media and I've been reading about, things, people talking about the show, and some jerk out there said that Brooke tapped because she was in a green tarp. Whoever that person was that said that about Brooke, you're a fool, because Brooke went out here and did everything in her power to do well out here. And in my book, she did very well. So for you to sit there on your couch and talk about she quit because of a green tarp, you don't know what you're talking about. The demoralization of that color really affected her. And it's not just that alone that set the depression in. She's been dealing with being alone, away from her husband. She's been having mental stress because of that tarp. It's been quiet. She's been starving to death out there, and it's such a humbling experience. The weather's been cold. She's been lonely. And she's decided to leave Mongolia with a smile on her face. So for you people out there that are going to be clowning on her for tapping out because of loneliness or whatever, calling it that she tapped out because of a green tarp, I think you're idiots. I have a lot of respect for Brooke and everybody that's been on the show. They're out there putting their lives at stake for us to be entertained. So you guys got to back off and give her some credit. So that's pretty much the end of the show. But there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about very briefly, and that was when it comes to med checks and when the crew comes in to exchange the SD cards and the batteries and stuff for the cameras. A lot of people on social media were talking about how, you know, when the contestants are out there and they're suffering from human interaction, that they get that like when you're hungry, you eat and you fulfill your hunger. Just like when the people come in for the med checks and for the battery checks, a lot of the viewers out there are thinking that moment when the crew comes in, that these contestants are being fulfilled through the human activity, that it's fulfilling them. And I've read several people that have been on the show that say that's not the case. That when the people come in and they exchange the SD cards or the batteries, or when they come to do a med check, it's strictly business, and they're not there to entertain or to feed that human contact kind of thing. So it's kind of like, hey, we're here. There's your SD cards. Have a good day later. You know, so they're not giving them that. So I just wanted to put that out there. So I want to say thank you for watching the video today. I hope you got some good, useful information out of this video. Please feel free to leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think about this episode. And please stay nice about your comments. And until next time, thanks again for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day. And Brooke did not quit because of a green tarp, folks. Not at all. She quit because of a culmination of many things. Later.